Elizabeth Strafford's Yellowstone decision in 1923 Season 2's finale is the right choice. Elizabeth Strafford, Michelle Randolph, makes a life-altering decision in 1923 Season 2's finale. And it is the right choice for Jack's, Darren Mann, widow. 1923 Season 2, Episode 7, was a massive finale for 1923's characters. The Dutton family's war broke out as Elizabeth and Cara Dutton, Helen Mirren, waited at the house, while Zane, Brian Girardi, and other Yellowstone ranch hands engaged in a shootout to protect the family's land. The war wasn't over until Spencer Dutton, Brandon Sklinner, came home, wiping out Banner Creighton, Jerome Flynn, and Donald Whitfield's Timothy Dalton, remaining men with an elephant gun. Despite his tactical victory, Spencer experienced a devastating loss in the finale when his wife, Alexandra of Sussex, Julia Schlepfer, succumbed to complications from hypothermia. She refused to have her necrotic limbs amputated, opting to maximize time with her baby, whom she named John. The development seemingly confirms that Alexandra is John Dutton Nye's, Kevin Costner, grandmother, solving an unresolved Dutton family mystery in Yellowstone. Therefore, Elizabeth's baby isn't Beth, Kelly Riley, and Case's, Luke Grimes, ancestor, confusing her place in the Dutton family tree as she exits the ranch. While she stepped up to fight for her life, shooting Banner Creighton's men and saving Zane, Elizabeth leaves the Dutton ranch in 1923's series finale. After the war is won, Elizabeth steps out onto the porch as Cara feeds John Dutton to goat's milk. Cara tells her that she knows it probably feels like Elizabeth is quitting, but that isn't the case. Cara emphasizes that after Jack's death, Elizabeth's reason for staying is gone. Jack's aunt knew that Elizabeth wouldn't be happy on the ranch, especially after Jack's fate was added to the list of shocking Dutton family deaths. Regardless of Jack's death, Elizabeth was struggling to live a fulfilling life on the ranch. Just moments before she discovered she was pregnant a second time, Elizabeth was discussing her plans to leave Montana for Boston in 8 days with Jacob Harrison Ford, who suggested she could return after some respite. Elizabeth wanted to leave the ranch because she lacked support from her husband and didn't have adequate expectations of what life at the Yellowstone ranch would be like. Furthermore, terrible things happened to Elizabeth Strafford in 1923, giving her no reason to embrace ranch life after her husband's death. Elizabeth leaves behind memories of loss as she departs the ranch, emboldening her decision to leave to live a happy life. Strafford never achieved the life she wanted at the Yellowstone ranch, and her loss is a significant part of why things went wrong. For instance, Elizabeth was never able to officially marry Jack. Their wedding ceremony was postponed after Jacob decided to take a week or two to drive cattle up the mountain. However, when Banner Creighton makes his initial attack on the Duttons, Elizabeth's father, Bob Strafford, Tim DeKay, dies in the gunfight that wounds her as well. While losing her father would be sad enough, Bob Strafford's death prompts Elizabeth's mother, Beverly, Jesselyn Gilsig, to cancel her wedding, saying it died with her father. Despite her mother's insistence that she and Jack join her in the East, Elizabeth makes the brave decision to stay at the ranch with her sweetheart. Elizabeth's decision was never rewarded. While it's true she wasn't prepared for ranch life, Elizabeth faced a series of uncontrollable circumstances, such as losing her first baby and getting attacked by wild animals in 1923 Season 2. However, losing her soulmate was the most significant blow. Despite Elizabeth's exit from the ranch, she still has an indelible tie to the Dutton family. Elizabeth is still carrying Jack Dutton's baby, for all we know, in the 1923 Season 2 finale. While Liz's baby isn't John Dutton too, unless she also names her baby John, the connection makes the mother part of the family forever. This makes Cara Dutton's insistence that Elizabeth will forget Jack a bit odd, since she's had 2 children with him and will probably carry the second one to term. That said, Elizabeth's child with Jack could re-emerge in Taylor Sheridan's next Yellowstone prequel. After 1923 Season 2's ending, Sheridan teased the 1923 Dutton family story, continuing in 1944, which would continue to bridge the gap to Kevin Costner's modern-day Yellowstone series. Since Liz and her baby probably live, especially outside the dangers of the ranch, the mother and child may factor into the upcoming story, with her child potentially returning to the ranch. However, for now, Elizabeth made the right decision to put the Dutton Ranch behind her and return, presumably to the east. Liz's heart always belonged to city life, and it makes sense to honor that without her previous ties. The winds of Montana never lie, and neither do the choices of a woman shaped by fire, grief, and the iron will of the frontier. In the emotionally charged finale of 1923 Season 2, Elizabeth Strafford makes a decision that will ripple across generations. A decision that some may call heartbreaking, others might label brave, but above all, it is the right one. When Elizabeth walked into the Dutton family after marrying Jack, she was not just stepping into a marriage. She was stepping into a legacy, a war, and a way of life that few could understand, let alone endure. The land was soaked in blood, and the family crest came stitched not with gold, but with sacrifice. Elizabeth didn't flinch when the wolves came howling. But when her womb, once filled with hope, turned into a graveyard of loss, something shifted inside her. Grief has its own geography. Elizabeth wandered it alone after the miscarriage. She had envisioned a life with Jack, a ranch bustling with children, laughter, horses galloping across spring fields. She had named their unborn child in whispers to the night sky. She had imagined teaching them to ride, to love the land, to pray hard and fight harder. But those dreams vanished in a silent, flood-soaked moment. And still, she stayed, through gunfights, droughts, and death threats. Through the ever-looming shadow of Donald Whitfield and the cold menace of frontier politics. She stayed not because she was weak, but because she had learned that strength sometimes looks like stillness. She watched Cara Dutton navigate family crises with a steel spine wrapped in lace. She watched Jack stand tall in the face of impossible odds. She learned that the Yellowstone was not simply a ranch. It was a battleground, a church, a tomb, and a home all at once. So when the Season 2 finale arrived, Elizabeth was no longer the sweet, innocent girl who once worried about the color of her wedding dress. She was a woman who had buried dreams, stitched wounds, and carried a new vision forward. That vision didn't include having another child. The world was changing. The Yellowstone was under siege from modernity, from greed, and from the ghosts of colonial sin. Elizabeth had seen what this life cost the Duttons. She knew another pregnancy could cost her everything. More importantly, she knew she had a different purpose to fulfill, one not bound to biology, but to will. When she sat across from Jack in the finale, the fire crackling behind them and silence stretching like the prairies outside, Elizabeth made her choice. She would not try for another child. She would not let her worth be defined by her ability to reproduce. Instead, she chose to be the legacy, to embody it, to mold it with her own 2 hands. Some viewers may argue that this decision marks an end for Elizabeth, that she's giving up on the traditional frontier ideal of womanhood. But in truth, she is rewriting it. Her decision challenges the narrative that motherhood is the only way a woman contributes to generational stories. On the Yellowstone, contribution is measured by courage, and Elizabeth has that in spades. Jack, for all his rugged edges and Dutton stubbornness, didn't challenge her choice. That moment of quiet acceptance between them spoke volumes. It wasn't a surrender. It was a partnership reborn in truth. They are still Duttons. They are still warriors. But their war now looks different. In choosing not to pursue motherhood again, Elizabeth also chooses to live. Fully, fiercely, and intentionally. She steps into a matriarchal role that doesn't require diapers and lullabies, but wisdom and grit. If the future Dutton generations will survive, they'll need more than heirs. They'll need mentors, shields, and storytellers. Elizabeth's strength lies in her decision to be all three. The Yellowstone Ranch, through its generations, has never been about bloodlines alone. It's about the choices that people make to defend something bigger than themselves. Jacob and Kara had no children of their own, and yet their imprint is all over the land, the people, and the legend. Elizabeth now walks a similar path, not barren, but deliberately forged. This decision also subtly repositions Elizabeth within the mythos of the Dutton family. She no longer exists on the margins as Jack's wife or the would-be mother of the next generation. Instead, she becomes an architect of legacy in her own right. She has earned her place beside the Caras, the Beths, the Margarets of this world, not because she bore a child, but because she bore witness and kept showing up anyway. And it's this very redefinition of strength that 1923 needed in its finale. The series has always balanced the violence of the West with the resilience of its women. Elizabeth's final decision is not a loss. It is a lantern held aloft, casting light on a new trail. In a world obsessed with lineage and land, she carves a space for meaning beyond maternity. She claims the right to define her own legacy.